Hey friends, welcome back to another video. Today I am doing another BuJo Babble. This I think is episode 7. I'll link the playlist for you if you want to check out the past episodes. But this is a series where I set up my bullet journal or work on art for my bullet journal while discussing topics usually directly related to bullet journaling. Just a place to discuss some of the aspects of the community that maybe don't get talked about as much on YouTube. Some of these things are touched on more in Facebook groups and Reddit, other communities like that. So in today's video, I wanted to talk about privacy and safety in the context of bullet journaling. This is maybe not the most exciting topic I could talk about, and I do feel like this topic is showing my age a little bit, but I do think it's important. This is something that was brought up to me in a DM from moon.journalhoney a long time ago now. I don't know the exact date. I'd have to go back and check. I remember seeing this DM and thinking it was a great idea for a video topic, but for whatever reason, I completely forgot about it until this week when I was thinking about what I wanted to make a video about. This is probably pretty obvious to some of you. Hopefully most of you are already taking these precautions and more than aware of how to keep yourself safe and keep your privacy intact while being online. Again, maybe my age is showing here, but when I was in school many years ago, we were taught very little about internet safety, but it was a different time. So I'm not sure how much that has changed. I don't know how much parents and schools are being proactive about teaching their children about privacy and safety online in general and also on social media. But I think it's talked about more in the context of, don't share a picture of you standing in front of your house, or don't share a picture of what school you go to. Don't share your address online. And while those things feel obvious, we don't always realize that the way that we're sharing our bullet journals may actually be inadvertently sharing that information that we thought we were keeping private. So where I personally have noticed this happening the most is on Reddit, especially the BuJo subreddit, and on Facebook groups. And people will share completed spreads of various types on these groups or on Reddit, and none of their personal information has been blurred out or blocked out or covered with washi tape, nothing. Now, you are your own person and your bullet journal is yours, and what you share is completely up to you. So please don't take this as me, telling you what to do or what not to do. But I think it's important to start a conversation around what we're sharing in the context of bullet journals. So I agree that sharing completed spreads is really nice. I agree that it's much easier to see how spreads function when you see them filled in rather than an empty spread. And I understand why people want to see those filled in spreads, why people want to share them, also why people request that of people who post their bullet journals online. I get questions all of the time about doing flip throughs of completed bullet journals, showing filled in spreads as I go along. And while I do try to accommodate those requests by posting filled in spreads on a relatively regular basis and doing flip throughs when I finish a bullet journal, I personally try to be very cautious about not sharing spreads before everything involved in that spread is in the past. So for example, if someone wants to see a filled in weekly spread to see details about how the rolling weekly works, for example, I'm not going to post the current weekly that I'm using that still has information about days that are yet to come filled in on social media. Because even though I try to be careful about how much detail I include in my bullet journal, because bullet journaling is part of what I do for my job, and because sort of the nature of what I do here online involves sharing my bullet journal with a lot of people, even the level of cautious that I tend to be with how I even write things in my bullet journal in the first place still has more information than I want to share ahead of time. So let me make up a made-up situation. So we're in quarantine. This is obviously not happening, but just say I had a coffee date with my friend Rachel on Friday, right? So if I write in my bullet journal, coffee date at Johnny's Coffee with Rachel, 3 p.m. If I then share that, people see, oh, 3 p.m. on Friday, Elizabeth is going to be at coffee with this person, Rachel. Who's Rachel? Maybe I will search in who she follows to find someone named Rachel. They comment on each other's posts. This must be this Rachel. Now I know a lot more information about this person. Where's Johnny's Coffee? I know that Elizabeth lives in Toronto. Let me look up Johnny's Coffee. Oh, there's 3 locations. She is going to be in one of these 3 places at 3 p.m. on Friday. I also know that she's not going to be at home at 3 p.m. on Friday now, etc., etc. Now, I would consider myself an optimist in a lot of ways. I would probably qualify myself as a cautious optimist with a heavy dose of realism, and I can be cynical from time to time. But I'm definitely one of those people that assumes the best out of people. I don't assume that there are people trying to figure out where I live or where I am at all times so that they can invade my personal space. I don't assume that people are trying to figure out how to get into my house, but those people do exist. And I think it's important to expect the best out of people, but prepare for the worst, because those worst situations do happen. For that reason, I try to be really careful about what I write in my bullet journal and what I share and when. So in that made-up situation where I was going for coffee with Rachel at 3 p.m. on Friday at Johnny's Coffee, if I were to write that in my bullet journal, I would probably write 3 p.m. coffee with R. And then the key factor, because that still tells you that I'm going to be out for coffee at a certain time, is that I try to not share anything that shows that information until Friday has already passed. Once Saturday comes around, it's free range. I can share that. Doesn't matter, it already happened. But leading up to Friday, even with that small amount of information, I try not to share that anywhere on the internet, the best that I can. Not saying that I'm perfect, because I definitely am not, but these are some of the things that I try to think about when sharing. So in this video, for example, I'm setting up a weekly and I'm putting in some of the information. By the time this video goes live, these days have already passed. Also, because we're in quarantine, I'm not going anywhere. So there's that. So the reason I think this is important to touch on is obviously personal safety and privacy are very important things, not only just for yourself, but also the privacy and safety of your friends and family when sharing information that involves them. Either they're going to be at a place or, sharing their birthday. That's something that I've done without really thinking about it in the past. Or, sharing information about where your cousin goes to university by writing, go visit cousin X at Harvard University. It seems like these pieces of information are so small and insignificant and fragmented that it would never add up to anything. But there are people who are out there who can collect all of this information together and get a very complete picture of your life or the lives of people who are close to you through what you share on the internet. As we all know, having watched You on Netflix, which really brought this back into my consciousness, I think, and probably for a lot of people, this idea of internet safety, because watching something like that, you see how easy it is for someone to learn a whole lot about you just by being observant about what you share on various social media platforms. And I think bullet journaling can be a conduit for sharing a lot of personal information that we're not necessarily really aware that we're sharing. So things to keep in mind: posting any times that you're going to be out of the house. If someone knows where you live, then they know that your house will likely be empty at that time. So again, not sharing that information till after that time has passed. That is even more true for if you're traveling for an extended period of time, for example, on a vacation. Sharing anything about locations of places that you are going to be, even if you don't include the full name or the address. It's pretty easy to Google these things, find them on a map, especially if they know the general area you live in. Sharing information about your school that you go to or your employer, even the town you live in. I think a lot of people are pretty open about the town they live in or city they live in these days. I know I am, but it is something to be cautious about, especially the younger you are. Obviously, your phone number, your email address, your home address, any kind of passwords, usernames, logins, any financial information, those are some of the basics that I assume every single person watching this video already knows, but they bear repeating because sometimes we don't even realize that we have some of this information in our bullet journals, and we may post a flip through or a quick picture of a spread and not really fully register how much information we are putting out into the world. And as soon as you post something on the internet, it's there forever. Even if you post it on an Instagram story, it disappears after 24 hours, but it's saved on Instagram in your archive. People could have easily grabbed a screenshot. It is still on the internet. So I guess what I'm trying to say here is think before you post, double check what's visible on a spread before you share it, cover things up with washi tape or block things out in editing, blur them, put a sticker on top of it, whatever it is to protect yourself. Even places like private Facebook groups, I see people sharing a lot more detail and personal information than they would in other places on the internet. But there's nothing that stops people from saving your photos from a private Facebook group and sharing them on other places on the internet. I think a lot of people assume that no one would do that, but a lot of times the people doing that aren't even doing it with malicious intent. They just like the idea for a spread and want to save it, and they end up pinning it on Pinterest so that they remember it later, and now it's on Pinterest for anyone to see and share and save and use. What I personally try to follow is a three-pronged approach of, first of all, being careful about what I even write in my bullet journal in the first place, even though it is primarily for my personal use. I try to be as vague as possible. I know who I'm planning on calling on Wednesday. I don't have to write their full name. I can just write an initial. That's enough to remind me, but it also means if I ever share that page, their name isn't being put on the internet. The second thing is blocking out any information that may be private that you did end up needing to write before you take any pictures or videos of your bullet journal to be shared online. And the third part is waiting until after that spread has kind of passed its relevance, till we're in the future, to share those spreads so that we are sharing things that have already happened and keeping ourselves safe that way as well. So that was just what I wanted to talk about today. Again, I think this is probably pretty straightforward for most of you watching, at least I hope so, but I have been pretty surprised by what I've seen being openly shared all over the internet from people in the bullet journaling community. And while sharing is great, don't get me wrong, I think it's really awesome to share our spreads. I think it's great to see filled in spreads. I love to see flip throughs and how people are using their bullet journals. I think all of our safety and security has to come first. So if you haven't really thought about this before in the context of your bullet journal, I encourage you to. I would love to know in the comments if you have other suggestions for ways to keep ourselves safe, our information private, while sharing our bullet journals online. Maybe other aspects that I didn't mention or haven't thought about. I would love to know in the comments down below. And as always, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give it a like if you did and subscribe if you haven't already. Let me know in a comment what you would like me to touch on in future in my BuJo Babble series. I've covered quite a few different topics and I really do enjoy this format. It kind of feels like a podcast, which is something that I've always thought about doing. So it's quite enjoyable for me. I hope you're having a lovely day and I will see you very soon in my next one. Stay safe. Bye, friends. Thank you so much to my patrons for their support. Extra special thanks to our newest patron, Kathleen. Welcome to the squad. We are so excited to have you. If you at home want to join the squad, feel free. There's a link in the card and in the description box down below. And if you're looking for something else to watch, I recommend you check out this video or this video.